Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Megan Halsband. I am the head of the Physical Collections section in the Serial and Government Publications division here at the Library of Congress. Sorry that is so long. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to the 10th Annual Small Press Expo lecture talk. And we have a wonderful artist here to talk to you about their work. The president of the Small Press Expo, Warren Bernard, is going to introduce our speaker. We'll have questions at the end. And also, as you're walking out, please feel free to browse our display of Small Press Expo materials. We'll be here afterward to answer questions. And again, thank you for joining us. Warren?
Well, this is personally a big thrill for me. I've had the pleasure of knowing Tilly, 8 or 9 years now, which is like unbelievable. She's one of the most amazing writers. We're going to forget her art, which is fantastic, okay? But she really does write a really great story, and I'm a big storyteller person. She's won the Ignatz Award. She's won Eisner's. Robert Kirkman came and got her to do Clementine, and the third book is coming out next year. I've read the first 2 volumes. They're great. Art is fabulous. And I consider her a friend, and so it's just a big thrill for me to have her give the 10th anniversary SPX lecture. Tilly.
Thank you. Woo, boy, thank you, everyone. I'm here fresh off of dropping off our baby at the grandparents, so I'm like a little woozy and a little concerned about our child. No, he's going to be fine. The SPX lecture is not about my baby. Don't worry. So I have been spending a lot of time in the past lately. I live in Vermont in this year, 2024, but I have been thinking a lot about Vermont in 1824, or around then. Not surprisingly, life was very different back then. A lot of what we have today, they did not have back in the 1800s. But maybe a little surprisingly, some things hold true despite the gap of 200 years. Today, in 2024, I'm a lesbian cartoonist. I live in a house on a dirt road near a farm with my wife, also a cartoonist, and our son, not a cartoonist yet. And in 1824, in Vermont, in a tiny town named Weybridge, off a dirt road near a farm, there was a house where 2 women also lived together. They were not cartoonists. That would be so cool and give this story quite a different flavor. But they were tailors, and they were creatives of a different type. And while gay marriage was not legal in 1824, these 2 women, Charity Bryant and Sylvia Drake, were, as near as they could be, married to one another. They lived openly in their community in Weybridge, which was near Middlebury, Vermont, and they didn't use the word gay, because gay had a different meaning back then. They used words like my dear friend and helpmeet to describe their dynamic. Love helpmeet. That's a good one. Let's bring helpmeet back. But they were listed on their town register as family. Charity was in the place for husband because she had to be somewhere. They were avid churchgoers, especially Sylvia, and they spent their days and nights making clothes for their friends, family, and neighbors. If you do not believe me that they were accepted in their community, here's an example to help you understand. People in town would send their daughters to Charity and Sylvia's house, their precious children, in the hopes that they would apprentice with Charity and Sylvia to give the girls a skill to help them in their life ahead. Sylvia even taught Sunday school in God's own house, a woman who lived with another woman. And that is one of the ways you know when a queer person is accepted. It's when we're trusted around kids. And it's 200 years later, and it's strange to say that there are quite a few people out there who don't trust my books with their kids. Now, I bring up Charity and Sylvia because the history of queerness is vast and enduring. which is not too different from the history of my art form, of comics, the reason we're all here today. Comics have been around quite a long time, from the moment people could write and draw or carve or sew. Words, pictures, they've been put in sequences, which is our bread and butter. We love sequences. The term graphic novel is new, but the concept is not. There is something very instinctual to the idea that you can tell stories with a series of images. It's so natural to how humans tell stories. And the medium has evolved over centuries. And obviously we spent a large chunk of time in newspapers where comics truly flourished. And eventually we show up in books. We become floppy, we become printed, we become stapled, we become bound. The stories get longer. And of course, zines are a part of this history too, as are arguably children's books. Not everyone agrees on that point, but I think most children's books involve sequential imagery and sequential storytelling, and they deserve to sort of be in the room with comics. And we get all the way to graphic novels, which is a term that really shows up in the 90s to today. Now, as I've mentioned, I don't even know if I've mentioned it yet, Warren mentioned it, but my job is making comics. And I am often brought around to various places to talk about comics and queer topics because those merge in an interesting way and perfectly represent who I am. I've written and drawn quite a few books, all of which have queer characters and themes. I did not pick this label, queer cartoonist. It just gets sort of applied to you because I'm gay. We don't call straight cartoonists. I actually think that would be fun if we did, but we don't. We just call them cartoonists. But it's interesting how in this day and age we do get sort of these labels get attached to us and they become a way people recognize and know our work, which has positive and negatives to it, of course. I often don't, sometimes I even forget that I am gay, and I only remember when a woman at the grocery store looks at my baby and says, "I bet he looks like Dad." They say that to my wife, who is a brunette, and our son is blonde. Shocking stuff, a brunette having a blonde child. But then I remember, like, oh yeah, I'm a woman, married to a woman. That's a problem for some people. But I am passionate and obsessed with putting pictures and words in little boxes to tell stories. I cannot tell you how much I love this. I just love it. I want to put stuff in boxes all the time. I have told stories that are true about my life growing up as a competitive figure skater and synchronized skater in New Jersey and Texas in one of my books. I've told a lot of stories that are fiction too, of course. Outer space. Castles that look a lot like the Library of Congress. Zombies, ghosts, Texas, you name it, I've probably drawn it. Though I have not done robots yet, maybe soon. Why not? You can make a robot gay. But I loved comics growing up. I'm sure there are a lot of people here who loved comics growing up. And you remember that feeling of what it felt like to read a comic. I loved Calvin and Hobbes. Interestingly, my high school English teacher, Mr. Watterson, was his brother and was a failed cartoonist. Oh God, this is on Zoom, I should be quiet. No, it doesn't matter. I'm telling the story. He wanted to be a cartoonist, he ended up being an English teacher, and we were not allowed to talk about Calvin and Hobbes. It was forbidden in the classroom. Oh man, Mr. Watterson's gonna come for me now that I told that story, but it's all right. I'm bitter because there was another girl in our class who made comics, so I felt like he liked more and he didn't like me, and I was like, oh. I'm gonna be a cartoonist, and look at me now at the Library of Congress. I did it, I made it. But anyways, back to the passion of comics and what we read growing up. I loved the comic strip Baby Blues. Did anyone read Baby Blues and enjoy it? Yeah, I loved Baby Blues. And now I have a baby, and I'm like, wow, it's so true. Babies are wild. Obviously, Nancy by Ernie Bushmiller. And I was deeply influenced by this collection called Little Lit, that it ended up in my bedroom. I don't know who gave it to me or why, but it's wonderful. It's full of wonderful comics. I got manga from the used bookstore in our town. Many queer origin stories involve a little bit of manga in there, maybe some anime. Of course mine did as well. Completely obsessed. These stories just filled my cup. It was reading these books and these series was incredible because they steal your heart, and then you find out there's 30 volumes. And you're like, okay, I can do this. Let's read. I still remember the feeling I had when I read Blankets by Craig Thompson, and it was like I had just fallen off a cliff. I could not believe someone could tell a story like that. I couldn't believe a comics page could bend to the will of your story. It fascinated me. And while I really did love comics, I didn't plan on becoming a cartoonist. I was sort of busy with this whole ice skating thing. But when I read these books, you read these comics, you adore them, but there's nothing on the last page that says, and you can do it too. It's just like, the book's over. Great, I'm so glad someone did that. And so comics were just this thing that I loved in the background. But your own history is constantly being shaped by the people who enter it. And I was lucky enough to be 16 and have Scott McCloud enter my story briefly for 2 days. Thank you, Scott. I took a comics class with him, totally on a whim, not really realizing how important this man was in comics. I knew my dad liked his books, so I was like, okay, fine, I'll go to this class, whatever, Dad, leave me alone. I was deep in age 16 at this moment. I still remember I wore this really big hoodie, and I was hiding in it as I walked into class. But this class is the reason that I make comics. It completely changed my life. Because it was in this class that Scott was like, okay, make a comic. And I was like, what? We can make them? And I can't even, the light bulb went off in my head, and I drew some panels, and I was like, oh my God, I can do this too. It just a few hours for that revelation, but then it took me a few more hours to realize, wait, it doesn't look good. And wait, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't look like Blankets or like all the manga. I thought maybe it would just happen. It didn't happen. But luckily, I had learned a thing or two from some violent ice skating coaches about how to become good at something. And the thing I learned from these very angry people is that you work tirelessly for at least 5 years to even be slightly good at something. And even still, you're not good, because that was their energy. That getting good is a process of jumping in the air and falling down and getting up and doing it again. And while, of course, that's not great, that's not the healthiest, it gave me this feeling of okay, I'm gonna start working on comics, and I know I'm probably not gonna be good at it for 5, 6, 7 years. And it kind of gave me a pretty realistic understanding of what it takes to learn to draw and to learn to get involved in this medium. After I left that class with Scott, I decided I was going to quit ice skating. I was going to devote myself to this art form. I was also still in high school and had to do school. And I was like, I don't have to do that. This is my passion now. Graduated barely, but I did it because you need a high school degree in order to go on what I decided to do. Because I decided I would not go to college because I didn't think there was a 4-year comics college. I didn't do a lot of research. I did a cursory Google 4-year comics school college thing, and Google was and I was like, oh, okay, forget it. And my parents were like, why aren't you going to college? And I'm like, I Googled it. I'm not going. It's not there. But then, of course, while Googling, I discovered there is a 2-year comics college program. And I was like, oh, I guess I should just do this, because my inner skating coach was like, it's going to take years. You might as well spend some of those years at school learning how to do this. And I was like, okay, maybe I will go to the Center for Cartoon Studies in White River Junction. Much to the deep frustration and confusion of my parents. They're fine with it now because I am successful. I'm like, guys, I have a Wikipedia page. Mom and Dad, they're so proud. They are actually very proud. I love you, Mom and Dad. You're not watching this. It's okay. It's okay. But I found this comic school in White River Junction, Vermont, and I got so much out of this program. And the most important thing I got was time. Everyone here who knows and makes art knows that it's our most precious commodity, is time to work, time to make something that isn't very good, and then time to try and make something again. It's so crucial. And I also found a community of people around me who were doing the exact same thing. at the Center for Cartoon Studies. I did this for 2 years. It felt like summer camp. I really did. I loved it. And when I go to the doctor and fill out the form that asks you for your highest form of education, I always delight in writing certificate in cartooning because it is my highest form of education. And since CCS, I have not stopped. I have been making and publishing comics for 10 years. I didn't find all my books, that's some of them, but I couldn't track them all down. I didn't have time to take a photo because we have a baby. But all of this begs the question, what is it about comics that created such a fervor in me? What is it about comics that creates a fervor in all of you? Why is it comics? Why is it not music? Why is it not painting or accounting? That would be practical. Something that could give me healthcare, that would be lovely. But comics just grabbed my soul, like they really did. There was something about the way you break down a story into these slow, singular moments, and you stretch time, and you have this ability to express these minute feelings. I love that comics get granular. Like this is a moment in my book where I just describe how it felt to look at my reflection in a vending machine, like to take the time to think about something like that. And seeing an experience separated by text and image, and yet also seeing an experience merged by the text and the image. Just the way it all interacted, it kind of lights me on fire in the best way. It feels completely magical. It feels like there are so many opportunities in comics to tell stories in so many ways. I'm never worried about running out of things to do because I'm still uncovering how to do it. And of course, I loved reading comics growing up, but the feeling of actually making them, I find it's better. I love it even more because when I read comics, I feel like I'm inside of a room that is sort of magical and beautiful, but then when I'm making comics, I feel like I'm building the room from the outside, brick by brick. And it's always made so much sense to me. Making comics did two very opposite things for me. It both helped me escape my own world, but also brought me closer to understanding myself. And I don't think I'm alone in this. I know I'm not alone in this. Otherwise, we wouldn't be at SPX. And even if you don't make comics, you just read them or you're interested in them, I know that most people here understand that feeling of looking at a page of comics and genuinely feeling like you're falling inside of it. And obviously, we experience this magic in all sorts of mediums. We experience it with prose, we experience it with film. But I've always believed that comics have this very unique flavor to them that is just unlike anything else. What a comic does so beautifully is that it allows us, this is my wife's comic, she's embarrassed, it's okay, it's an amazing comic. Read How to Draw a Horse by Emma Hunsinger. But the point is that what a comic does so beautifully is that it allows us to pause, and then we can linger on these moments. We can feel action and reaction. I'm constantly talking to my students about action and reaction. It's our bread and butter with what we do. And I love that in comics, you can just hold on a moment, whereas when you're watching a movie, it gets away from you sort of so quickly. Comics are a very powerful medium, which is the point that I am circling around. And I do wonder if sometimes it's the power of this medium is part of what makes people afraid of it. The most banned book in America last year was a graphic novel, Genderqueer by Maya Kobabe. And the top 5 banned books last year were all banned because of queer content and claims that they were sexually explicit. So I know that the queer part of the term queer comics is perhaps the more dangerous half for some people. But this is not the first time in comics history that people have worried about our medium corrupting the youth. You do not have to go back too far to find it. In the 1940s, people talked with a lot of fear and judgment about comics. An editorial in the Chicago Daily News sums it up when talking about comics. This is what they said: badly drawn, badly written, badly printed. a strain on young eyes and young nervous systems. Their crude blacks and reds spoil the child's natural sense of color. That was in the newspaper. It really was. And of course, I'm sure a lot of people in this room know about Dr. Frederick Wertham and the Comics Code, the Senate hearings. If you don't know, it's an important part of our history. A child psychologist published a book called Seduction of the Innocent, all about how dangerous comics were to the minds of the young. And it genuinely scared people. It really did. And it's what caused the creation of the Comics Code Authority. And if this is when a period of censorship began. And while the code does not exist anymore, these parts of comics history have a lasting impact on our medium that are still felt today. I still have parents come up to me after school visits or talks and express concern about how many graphic novels their child reads, that they're worried because it isn't real reading. And I bring this all up because comics as a medium are, in the publishing world still kind of the scrappy little kid. Even if publishers have caught on to the fact that middle grade graphic novels are big, it doesn't change the fact that comics rarely win literary awards and rarely sell at the rate that prose does. And maybe it's no wonder that all of us queer people have gravitated towards comics. It's a smaller space, one where there's a history of zine making, of collaborating, of small print runs, of tiny stapled stories passed around. And when I make a comic, I do it in the same way that so many people in our history have. I get a piece of paper, I get a pencil and a ruler sometimes, and I start with page 1. That there has never been a time where more queer people have been in comics, where more of our stories have been told, is absolutely true. But the amount of books you can find in a bookstore, not just a comic store, in a bookstore, graphic novels telling the ins and out of all kinds of experiences made by all kinds of people is incredible. It is incredible. And I've learned so much from these 10 years making this work that there is quite a lot of good in the comics community. I never want a different job. I don't want a different community. You just have to walk around SPX to see what we are, what comics are, what they can be. And the work being made is fantastic and the people are the same. But it's also true that there is a lot that is quite hard. I won't go on and on about it, but it's hard to be a working artist today. The costs of life just get higher. The work tends to pay less and less. And many of us, including myself, understand the reality of spending years working on something that not many people will see or read. And when we think about the future of our medium and the future of queer people and how that all interacts, it can be hard not to feel this tension and this reality that on the one hand, I'm married. I spent my entire childhood literally without that right. I was 19 when it became legal for me to marry the person I love. At the same time, right now, anti-LGBTQ legislation is being passed left and right, all over the place. So on the one hand, I'm so happy to be alive and a cartoonist at this moment. I'm so grateful because it's made my career possible. But I also have a lot of fear, and I have a lot of fear that I know a lot of other people experience. And making comics and making art is one of the ways that I experience this joy and this fear simultaneously. There's really only one thing I know to be true about the future of comics, and it's that we're not going to stop. We're going to keep making them. We're going to keep making zines. We're going to keep making mini comics. We're going to keep making stuff to make our friends laugh. We're going to keep making temporary tattoos to hide under our table to share with people. And we're going to keep going to comic conventions and taking up a lot of space in Marriott hotels. Love you, Marriott. Our stories are here to stay because we are already a part of history. No one can take us out of it. Charity and Sylvia's letters, papers, poetry is all preserved. It's all been saved. That's how I know a lot about them. I know what they ate for dinner one night, applesauce, because Sylvia wrote about it. All of their letters, their writing is preserved in this small museum in Middlebury, Vermont, the Henry Sheldon Museum. So 200 years ago, in 1824, Charity and Sylvia would write poetry, often about one another. They would write acrostics about each other. They would write poetry by candlelight in their one-room house, and outside their window there were flowers that they would look at, that Sylvia described. And today I sit by my lamp at my desk and look out at the trees and I draw them. And I know that whatever the future looks like in another 200 years, whether it be by candlelight or lamplight, someone who is like me will sit down and make something. And I hope they will know that they are not alone. Thank you.